Hi everyone, welcome to Shan Khosla Tutoring Services. I think I realized after my last video that a lot of you will be applying to Oxbridge by the 15th of October, and I've worked with a lot of students and I've shared my personal statement with them. I was hoping to do this sometime later in this year because I wanted to work with a lot of students that were looking at the Jan deadline, so essentially giving them some time to format and figure out their content before I show them mine. But I do want to share it with you because I realize it would help some of you who are looking at the October 15th deadline. And this is a personal statement that got me an interview at Wadham College, Oxford. You can check out my previous video about how that experience was. And before we dive right into this, please remember to see my new website. Let me know what you think of it. And I also do run tutoring services for the UK, especially for the UCAS. So anything to do with SOPs, personal statements, and the National Law Admissions Test, I tutor for that as well. The form is in the bio of this video. So let's dive right into it, and I will break down my entire personal statement part by part. We will read it together and I will show you what I was intending to do with it and what are some positives you can take away from it. Great. Let's see you in the next section. So as I mentioned, my personal statement is of course law oriented, as I was applying for the regular law LLB program, and the 5 colleges that I did apply to were UCL, Oxford, KCL, LSE and Durham, out of which I received offers for all of them except Oxford, and I will be heading to UCL in the next 10 days actually. I think some disclaimers before I show you my personal statement and we dive a little deep into looking at the personal statement is that my personal statement is a lot more academic and is a lot more academically oriented, because the expectation from me being a senior student who's already had an undergraduate degree before is a lot more in terms of the kind of academic work and research I've undertaken vis-a-vis a student who's applying straight out of high school. So if you've just finished your A-levels, your IB, your IGCSE, or your CBSE programs, and you want to apply to law school, don't take my personal statement as a direct template, because mine is far more academic. It doesn't have to be this way. So a lot of content which can come very organically by you reading books or by you seeing TV shows or you looking at podcasts had to come for me through research, had to come from me doing intense work during my undergraduate degree in political science at Ashoka. So I will show you that section as well. Great, so let's look at the first paragraph. I will break it down for you and let's read along. I see the law as an intellectually stimulating and purposeful vocation. My love for the subject arises from interpreting its origins from the social contract, questioning the universal moral yardstick, and exploring how law fosters communities. I am captivated by this effect of the law, wherein communities that are compelled to take upon themselves the definition of a nation are bound to their fellow compatriots by the abstraction of the Constitution. For instance, my ancestors from Rawalpindi and I are not Indian through conventional national markers of a shared history or language, but through their adherence to the constitutional project. Gradually, I began to view the Constitution as an instrument of pedagogy for the practice of Indian democracy, binding together several such imagined communities. Now, of course, this is a lot to break down, and we will take it step by step. But what I want you to know is, like I said, I'm a senior student, so a lot of this has to relate to my research. So if some of you have guessed, I'm trying to point the reader into the direction of the Indian Constitution and everything to do with Indian constitutional research, because that's where we will begin. And you will see as you move on that my research is very closely linked to this. So when I speak about I see the law, that's a great way to begin any kind of personal statement, because everybody knows what the law is, everybody knows what medicine is, everybody knows what biosciences are. But when you make it through your perspective, so by saying I see the law as an intellectually stimulating and purposeful vocation, people might know that law is a purposeful vocation, but by saying I see the law, it becomes a lot more personal. So that's a great way to begin. I then dive into where my love for the subject comes from, right? Why am I applying for the subject? In the next line itself, I'm speaking about how my academic work that I've undertaken by reading Rousseau and other philosophers, the idea of where law comes from me is very clear in that second line. So basically starting off by saying what you see the subject as, and the second line being what has academically led you to that subject. And this academically led you to the subject is very important when applying to the UK, especially to colleges like Oxford or UCL, which are extremely academic and want the personal statement to be a lot more academically focused. It's a great way to begin your statement. I then spoke about, of course, what I'm captivated in the law by. So again, I'm making this a lot more personal. So I'm trying to tell you what the subject means to me. So the subject clearly means to me what it does for communities. And then I give the example of my ancestors and how I link that to my later research. So what I have done in this paragraph fairly roughly is make law my own, make it a lot more personal, speak about my academic interests that have led me to this subject, and then later I've almost segued it into my research. So that's a technique you can use as well, which is create an introduction which speaks about your definition of the subject, what has got you here in terms of your academic work, and almost flag post it into what you're about to see in this personal statement. Now, my second paragraph of the main body begins with this one here, which is the subsection of my main body. And I've dived right deep into my undergraduate work. So this is a great way to again segue right into your academics, because like I said, my first paragraph itself spoke so deeply of my academics. I wanted to speak about it a little bit more in the next section. So my second paragraph, or my first paragraph in the main body rather, is about my academic studies and my academic journey during my undergraduate program. My undergraduate study endowed me with the privilege to study political philosophy, from scrutinizing Socrates' trial to analyzing Wadham and Bingham. Working with attorneys, think tanks, and legal advisory firms acquainted me with the law in motion. As an intern for a Supreme Court advocate, our team aimed to enforce accountability on news outlets after a slanderous TV debate resulted in a participant's cardiac arrest. I helped draft a petition to the Delhi court recommending the enforcement of the new News Broadcasting Standard regulations, and made recommendations sourced from international broadcasting agencies such as the BBC. My work also included a stint at Cohen Advisory Group, creating legal research repositories for the IT ministry containing legislative changes brought by governments worldwide, and drafting a white paper on Indian telemedicine laws to empower the grassroots health worker. My interest in law emerged from a study of state formation and early nationalist thought through Anderson and Hobsbawm. The exegesis of Rousseau's social contract led me to realize that communities that undertake the definition of a nation must walk a moral tightrope. This tightrope in my senior year was expressed as natural law by Lon Fuller. Hart's debate with Fuller captured my attention. If Fuller allows for secrecy of the law during states of exceptions, then wouldn't his system mirror Schmidt's true sovereign? And would then in beeline with Hart's positivism? I also encountered Schmidt's true sovereign in Begum versus Home Secretary, where it was intriguing to observe the court empower the executive and subsequently suspend the rule of law. Now again, I will break this paragraph for you into two parts. Because my main body paragraph, like I said, is basically a mix of my work experience and my academics. So I begin firstly with a line about my academics, which is the idea, what was like my introduction to law, and I spoke about Waldron, Bingham, and Socrates. Socrates, of course, being the earliest of that lot. So that being my earliest political philosophy and political theory reading into law. So leaving that line here. And then I segue very well into showing you that even though I have the theoretical understanding of the law, I also have a great understanding of what real life law looks like. So when I speak about my work of working with attorneys, think tanks, legal advisory firms, that's just a way for you to show that you understand what the real world looks like in terms of the subject you're trying to study for. So you know what your career could look like after this. This is a great way to show universities that you understand that a lot of things in your subject are taught by the book, but you also understand how to look outside. And in the second part, I dive again back into my academics. I do almost like I jump back, I skip back, and I say that my interest in the subject actually emerges from studying nationalism and studying Hobsbawm. Again, you don't need to know the context of this. I'm just trying to show you the academic side. And Rousseau's social contract again makes a guest appearance. What I do towards the end, which I want you to pay attention to, and which I think is a marker of a great personal statement, is even though I'm talking about modules or theories or philosophies that the people who are reading this already know, and it's worthless to speak about them just by name dropping them. So more than name dropping, what this is I'm showing you what I find so curious about it, what I find so fascinating, the kind of questions I would ask in class. So that's a great way for you to actually start writing down, which is what is a question you would ask in class about this module. Say if this is a module that fascinates me in medicine, right? Say enzymes fascinate me in medicine, for example. Very vague example, but what are the kind of questions I would ask regarding enzymes? What is the research being taken up in enzymes that I can actually ask about? So that's what I did here, which is I segued into telling you about the modules that fascinated me, but more than just name dropping the modules, I've shown you what fascinated me so much about them. What were the questions I wanted to ask you? So this is a great way for you to show them that you're critically thinking about the modules that you're about to study in law, and you have a good depth in the kind of foundation you've already built around to understand what this subject is. Now, the next paragraph of my main body is again fairly well divided into 2 paragraphs, and I will break that down for you. The first paragraph is a little more law specific, so for anybody who's applying for law, this is directed right towards you. And the second one is about my research. So let's read through it. On a more historic note, I could hardly believe how close R versus Dudley and Stephens came to Fuller's Spelunkian Explorers. The court's ruling, necessity does not justify murder, fascinated me. I was struck by the court's attempt to trace malice through murder when self-preservation seemed to be the only possibility. Currently, I am working on an undergraduate thesis under legal scholars Madhav Khosla and Vinay Sitapati, wherein I try to decipher the safeguards present in the Constitution against amendments that challenge its founding values, essentially questioning why the Constitution has been unable to defend its core values amidst such upheaval. The Assembly debates serve as an invaluable primary resource to help me trace the diffusion of identity politics into the Constitution despite its overarching liberal framework. Now here in the first paragraph, which was about the Spelunkian Explorers and a very classic British law case, this is what I've done is I've kind of tried to show the admissions officer or the Department of Law that I'm applying to that I know some sense of that my research has been linked in India, and even though I am an international student, I have engaged at a certain level with British cases. I have engaged in some level with British academia, and what I've done is, again, I have just not name dropped. Like I mentioned in the last section, I have just not name dropped, I've engaged with it. So I've said this case fascinates me, but what fascinates me so much more about this case is that I can actually relate it to something I studied, which is Fuller's Spelunkian Explorers, and then I quote the case and I match out saying, oh, actually no, this is my module. That's a great way to show somebody something without being obnoxious about it, or like just name dropping, saying, oh, I know this, right? It's not as simple as that. It's almost, oh, you know, I know this as well because when I learned this, it sounded a lot similar to this. So that's the way. The second paragraph is fairly self-explanatory. It's about my research, again, which was about the Indian Constitution. So this becomes a large chunk of my thesis because I'm an international senior student. So for me to show the examiners and the department that the kind of research I've undertaken directly links to law, this is that kind of paragraph. If you've done any kind of research or any kind of work or any kind of writing that you want to show off, this is a great way to do it, which is break it down into a very simple paragraph, ask your thesis question and speak about what your research was like. You don't have to give your entire thesis what your findings are. I didn't have my findings by then, but just tell them what you're engaged with and what you find so interesting. So I showed them that, oh, the assembly debates really fascinated me because they speak about liberalism, but at the same time there's identity politics entering this sphere. And that's a great way for me to show them that I have great research skills, but I'm also able to critically think and analyze big chunks of data thrown at me and look at it through a legal perspective. Now the next 2 paragraphs are what I call what are essentially my pre-conclusion and conclusion. I'll just do that here. I won't break it into 2 separate sections. And this is again a great way for you to end, a great way for you to segue from your academics, research, work experience towards ending. And most schools do look out for this paragraph. So do pay attention to what I'm just about to show you. I also serve as a legal studies columnist for the Center for New Economic Studies, exploring new developments in media and technology laws. My school years as a passionate runner led me to found the Ashoka MUN Society so fellow students could participate in and share my love for debate. Throughout my time at Ashoka and my work experience, I have had rewarding yet fleeting encounters with the law, and I'm now keen to undertake the discipline formally. The United Kingdom's vibrant legal history and robust culture of legal practice offer an array of exciting possibilities. Now again, if you look at the first paragraph, that's space for you to speak about your supercurriculars, essentially extracurriculars which are very closely linked to the subject you're applying for. So if you're a debater, someone who's involved in MUNs, someone who's a writer, or an essay champion, that's a great way to show the faculty of law that you have these extracurriculars of sorts. Or say if you're a national level sports person, you should put that here. Now just don't write down I'm a national level sports person. Tell me what are the values you've learned while playing that sport: team management, quick thinking, because that kind of relates to what your subject is in a certain way and what you would be like at the university. So this is a section, the first one that we spoke about, where you can speak about your supercurriculars, essentially extracurriculars that get you across the line. My last paragraph for my conclusion is about life in the UK and essentially the opportunities that the United Kingdom provides me. And that is, of course, because I'm an international student. So a question that can normally be posed to as an international student is, why are you applying to the UK? And this becomes a very simple answer. So I have not only, it's a very good way that I've ended the personal statement, which is I've shown you that I've almost summarized saying that even though you've seen my academics at Ashoka, you've seen my work experience, but these have been really rewarding, but they've been fleeting encounters. They're very short span. And I want to undertake the discipline formally to increase my exposure. And the UK's vibrant legal history, diversity, and the possibilities it offers me as an international student are great. This is a great way to do it. I advise all my students to use why UK, international students, of course, why UK in their conclusion paragraph. It's a great place to put it, and it ends on a very good note. There's some sense of finality to it as well. Great, so that was my personal statement and how I went about applying to these schools. Again, a reminder and a disclaimer: please do not copy or plagiarize any of the work that you've seen. It will not only get you in trouble, but me in trouble as well, because the UCAS plagiarism checker, of course, can sense copies of handwriting, copies of the way you type, and words, of course, and the way the characters are spaced is very, very particular. It will ban you from the application cycle. So if you do not take that risk and do not try and copy what I've written, of course, there's a template for you to follow and for you to understand. But this was my personal statement, and I'm very happy I was able to share it with you. Please ask me any concerns or questions that you have in the comments below. I'll be sure to reply. Also a reminder, please do check out my website, and I offer tutoring services for anyone who's struggling with a personal statement much like this. I'll be happy to help you edit it, brainstorm it, and make it in its final form. I also offer tutoring for the LNAT right before you apply for Oxford. Of course, you have to give the LNAT, so I also do tutor for that. The link is in the bio of this video. And thank you so much for watching. Please do like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you very, very soon. Best of luck, and I hope you have a great application cycle.